Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless everybody, inshallah ta'ala, tuning in for today's Thursday Thoughts. It is 4th of July here in United States of America. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us. I mean, that's all I'll say. The Americans understand, the American Muslims specifically understand what I mean by that, inshallah ta'ala. So, what are the five messages of relationship building or repair? Again, we are continuing with our book study from Raising Mentally Strong Kids. Do not mind that this is torn. I did not do this. This came as it is. Like the Amazon people did this, but khair, inshallah, no worries. So, five messages. If you remember, the last Thursday thoughts that we did was how to protect a child's brain, how to teach them about brain health. That was the conversation. Today's conversation is about repairing and building the relationship with your child. So, how do you do it? Number one, we notice that you are important to us and we are committed to meeting your needs. What is the sentence? The sentence is, we notice that you are important. We know that you are important to us. Notice nahi. We know that you are important to us and we are committed to meeting your needs. Now this statement has two cycles. For example, when it's a baby, when you have a baby, when you have younger children, especially the ones that you feed and do everything, they get like 0 to, let's say, about 2 years. What you're doing is you're telling them that there's a need. They cry, so you fulfill their need. And then they develop the trust, right? So it's a need, it's desperation, then there's a fulfillment of need, and then the trust is developed. Now when the child goes from needs to wants, like, I want this, I want my blue sippy cup, I want to play there, I want to play in the park for more time, when their ego is developing, when they are understanding that they can say no when no is their favorite word, then what do? Then you have a second year cycle, which is they have a want, they are testing your boundaries about it, then you set a limit for it, you have a language of kindness and of understanding of boundary setting, and then the trust is developed, right? For example, in the park, you start telling them 10 minutes before, 20 minutes before, that we are going to leave the park in a few minutes, or we are getting ready, mom is getting ready, hope you know that you remember that we talked about this, that when mom will say that we are getting ready, and we expect the child to say no, and we expect the child to have a meltdown. I'm not saying that children are robotic and they will just keep their word. God forbid the adults don't keep their word. What about the children? But khair, inshallah, let us set up good examples for them. So one of the things that we need to do to keep an effective parenting is there was a 2018 survey. Just let me go with the survey before. In 2018, there was a survey about 70% of the parents said that we struggle to communicate with our children. Even we talk about Gen Zers not being able to communicate. We talk about Gen Zers, oh, they do not have language skills, or they do not have communication skills, and they're very good with their Gen Z slang, etc., etc. But honestly, as parents, even I know this, that sometimes it takes me days to form a conversation, especially when it's regarding and around grades, and when it's regarding around educational stuff. It takes me so much of contemplation and wording words in my head and practicing them out and seeing, like, if I say this, okay, how should I say this? And it takes time. It takes effort. Parenting, all the time, it takes effort, and we are exhausted. We are exhausted. There's no denying that. However, coming back, and a few said, so 70 said that we struggle, and then a few said that we cannot go beyond the 10-minute mark. It's not possible to bond or have a relationship in a few minutes with a child, right? So what was their suggestion? They have special time instructions, and they have four things that they give. They said, spend 20 minutes a day with your child doing what the child likes. If you have six children, then just be aware of your time, and hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, it will be manageable, but at least strive. We will strive with 5 minutes, and then we will go up until 20 minutes. And sometimes this happens is that you are giving the child one-on-one time and the other child interrupts, and sometimes it's okay and sometimes it's not okay, depending upon what you're discussing and depending upon the age of your child. For example, teens, in my in the child group age that I have, the young adults that I have, If I'm having a one-on-one time, usually what I do is I take that child with me outside the house. Like we go for a walk, or we go for a drive, or we go for an ice cream, or we go for some house errand, and I take them with me, and then we have our one-on-one time. Because in the house, of course, then the siblings are like, what are you both talking about? What are you both like discussing? I want to hear, etc., etc. So that's the thing. During the special time, this point two is during the special time, do not give any parental commands, questions, or directions. Don't give them any rules. You can say something like, I see you've changed the rules of the game and I'll play by your rules. Remember, the goal of special time is to improve the relationship between you and your child. Usually, and I will admit it, that usually when I have a specific message to give to my child, I will draw them out with a bribe of ice cream or some food that they like, and then I would make them comfortable, and then I would say the things that I need to say. But that's me time, that's not the special time for the child. I ask the children when I really want to connect with them for and know what's happening with them and know what's where they are at. For example, the other day, 2 days ago, I went for some to run some errands, and I took my son with me. And he was quiet, and I was quiet, and he was on his phone, and I was driving. And then I said, "Okay, ask me about yourself." He said, "I don't know what to ask you." I said, "No, ask me about yourself." He said, "Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Halima." And he said, "Okay." He said, "What am I supposed to ask you?" I said, "Ask me your favorite color. Try to find out how much do I know you. Even I want to test myself. Ask me about what's your favorite color, what's your favorite food, what's your favorite thing to do, etc., etc." Some questions I had absolutely no idea, but some questions I did, and every time I got an answer right, he was so happy. He was so genuinely happy, like, "Oh, you know this about me." And I was like, "Okay." So that was a good connection moment, right? Number three is notice positive behaviors. Pointing out the good is much more effective in shaping behavior than noticing the bad. We've said this many, many times over the years, that the good that they do, and sometimes they don't need to do anything. Sometimes they're just like sitting, and you look at them, and you can just say, "Mashallah, tabarakallah, I am so grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you." Or you can see, and when they're smiling or doing something, and you can say, "Oh, what a lovely smile you have." Or whatever trait they have, just bring it up and say, "You know what? I've noticed that trait of yours, and mashallah tabarakallah, I'm so proud of it," etc. Number four is listen more than you can talk. I I don't know why, but we want to talk more. And I've asked myself this question, that why do you want to talk so much more? Why can't you listen? Like, I'm talking to myself. And one of the things that came to my mind was because our whole entire childhood was about shh, shh, shh. School, don't talk. School, finger on the lips. House, don't talk. Don't make noise. Um, Exhausted parents, or I mean, did not know how to communicate. At least that was in my case. Every time you're just shushed. And so now when we come in our agency to talk, we just talk so much unnecessarily. We just like, and it's difficult as a parent to just hold your tongue back and listen. And when children say you're lecturing me, sometimes we are lecturing them. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us. So that was a special time instruction. But the five messages, what was the message number one? We notice you, you're important to us, and we are committed to meeting your needs. What is message number two? We value your feelings. We value your feelings. So they give an example. They say that there was this school, and there was an administrator in the school, and they noticed that whenever any child in the middle school had a problem, they would run to the administrator. There were two reasons for running to the administrator. Number one was because she was the only one who would allow children to call at their home, so that they can tell their parents whatever they need, and the problem can be solved. And number two, because she was a very good listener. Like, every time she saw a student walk into her office, she would have a genuine smile and warm eyes. Again, eyes, 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 eyes. The way you look, the way your face is, right? I have to give a whole life upon facial expressions. I do sincerely. And for the topic of husband wife, and for the topic of parenting, because I swear I can not count how many times just my facial expressions have either made the conversations easy or have worsened the situation for me in my life. whether it was a spousal disagreement, or whether it was a parental disagreement, or whether it was a whatever situation it was. Khair. So this lady, she always had a face that was welcoming. Number one. Number two was, this is what she did. Specifically, what she did was she would ask the child what's happening, and the child was like, "Oh, I forgot my lunch, or I forgot to bring my homework, and I really have to call my mom, and I really have to tell her to bring my homework soon. And, you know, and they're like, oh, she was like, oh, I see. So number one, I see that you're really worried about this. She acknowledged that, then she validated. It must be really awful. And then she said something that an adult is in an authority position does, is she says, "Oh, that's got to feel bad. It's never any fun to have a problem like that. It's sad, but I can only let you use their phone if there's an emergency. If any kid can handle this, though, you certainly can. If any kid can handle this situation, though, you certainly can." Now, in her head, the emergency might be going to the hospital, but they would go to the nurses, right? If they're sick, they would go to the nurses, and then they can call from the nurses. These were the emergencies, like forgetting the homework, or something else, or telling them that I'm going to stay back late, or I don't think it was a communication issue. I think certain issues where the children might just overthink and overreact, and she gave them the confidence that if any kid can solve this problem, it can be you. And the kid would solve the problem, and they wouldn't even have to call. So they said that the kids generally figured out how to solve their problems on their way without using the phone, leaving them in full confidence. And the love for and love for that lady, Mrs. Mech, I don't know. I cannot even pronounce this name. But khair, whatever. So, what was the key factor? What was the key factor in her? What was she doing? She was showing empathy. She was showing empathy. So, the message number two is, we value your feelings. And how do you do it? You show it with empathy. And in here, they describe that anger versus the power of empathy. And she says that if if kids whose parents routinely lose their temper or yell at them are vulnerable to host of the consequences that rob them from mental strength. For example, feeling stress, which can give bad implication to the brain health. Remember, this book is about brain health as well. Blaming themselves for whatever is making their parent mad. I mean, I cannot tell how many times the children, and we do not consider this. If you are connected with your child from the early on stages, you will see that children have this tendency. They have it in them that they blame themselves. Oh, I said this, that's why mama got mad. Or I, and sometimes we are raising our children saying, oh, I'm not going to talk to you because you are not listening to me, and I'm not going to listen to you. Oh, I'm sad because you did this and that made me sad. We are basically guilting them into doing the things we want them to do, or think about the things that they should not do. And that that conversation or that statement basically sets in shame, self-loathing, and overthinking, right? So, responding to a parent's anger with aggressive behavior, of course, if you're yelling, they're yelling, especially teens, having trouble sleeping, physical ailments, such as stomach aches, increased risk of mental health issues later in life. So, it's not possible that you as a parent or I as a parent will never lose our cool. We will. We generally will. But what are we supposed to do? What are the steps that can help us self-regulate? We've talked about self-regulation, but just revising that. Self-regulation is, take a step back, push yourself in, like timeout. Let's say, I need to just step out of this. I need to breathe. I cannot think straight. I do not want to yell. I do not want to react, but I am angry at this point. I need to calm down. You need to say these things aloud so that even your child understands what you're doing. Because, of course, at that point, your face is not very pleasant, and smiling is like whatever it is, right? So, know your triggers as well. Take deep breaths, know your triggers, take time out, show empathy. So, what does anger look like? Threat or lecture make it easy for the kids to blame their parents for consequences they experience, whereas empathy makes it harder for the kids to blame their parents for the consequences, right? Anger and frustration would shut the door on learning. Empathy would open the heart and mind to learning. Anger would leave the parents feeling stressed and leads a sense of guilt. Empathy allows the parents to be free of stress and guilt. Anger teaches kids to use anger. Empathy teaches the kids to demonstrate forgiveness, problem solving skills. So this is really important. Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Saima. Message number three: we value and accept what you think. We value and accept what you think. Now, how do you value and accept what they think? Repeat back what you hear without judgment. Listen for the feeling behind the words. Reflect back what your child is saying and feeling, right? So I will I will give examples of this. Repeat what is said without judgment or of the content of the words. For example, the girl comes in and says, "I want to dye my hair blue." And the ineffective parenting would be, "No, not as long as you're living in my house." But the effective conversation be, "You want to dye your hair blue? You want to dye your hair blue?" Like genuinely, like curiosity, right? Number two, listen for the feelings behind the words. So the conversation is continuing, and the child would say, "All the kids in my class are dyeing their hair blue." And the ineffective parent would say, "I don't care. I don't care if the world does it. You are not going to do it." Now, I've said that to my kids many times, honestly, because I thought, yeah, think that I have that kind of a relationship. When I say no, they understand a no is a no. But majority of the time I am listening to them, because really dyeing your hair blue is not going to change your child's personality. If that is a fear, then that is my fear. That is not my child's fear, right? So the ineffective parent would say, "I don't care. Whoever is dyeing their hair blue, I'm not going to allow you," right? But the effective parent would say, "Sounds like you want to be like other kids," which is encouraging understanding for further communication. And point three would be, reflect back what you hear the child saying and feeling. Your teen might respond, "Sometimes I feel like I don't fit in. Maybe changing my appearance will help." The ineffective parent would say, "Don't be silly. Of course you fit in. Your appearance has nothing to do with it." I mean, I don't think any parent would say that, but hey, they're just giving an example. Effective parenting would be, you think your appearance prevents you from fitting in, and so it gives space to expand their feelings. It gives time for more conversation. It gives more connection. It gives uh, room to understanding your child better. It is not just about the blue hair dye anymore. It's about how a child is perceiving themselves. I'll give you my own life stories example. My youngest, she will turn 14 on July 8th. Last year, she wanted to dye her hair red. And she was like, "I want to dye my hair red." I know in my teens, I've dyed my hair red, golden, burgundy, mm, had streaks. I've done all kinds of. So for me, it was not like, "Oh my god, how can you dye your hair?" And plus, she's a hijabi, so really, if she dyed her hair blue, green, purple, orange, yellow, it's not for the outside world. It's really for herself to experiment. So for me, it was okay, but for her dad, it was not okay. And so he was like, "No, no way you can dye your hair red." She said, "Baba, I'm not going to dye my whole entire hair red. There's a fashion where you do insides of your hair red, and it shows when you flip your hair, it shows like it really looks nice." And she showed him the videos and she showed him the pictures, and he was like, "No." And then I was like, "Ask him, what does his no mean? No is for because what does he think is going to happen when you dye your hair?" And she asked him, and he said, "Oh, people who dye their hair, they become rude and arrogant towards their parents. Especially red color is all about, it's about anger and it's about passion. It's about expression of themselves. And people, the kids, usually teens, become battamis, like they become unruly." And she said, "Baba, I've been raised by you. Do you think how many times have I been rude and arrogant and snobbish towards you or mama?" He said, "No." But and she says, "You really think that the red dye is going to change my personality, Baba?" And he was quiet for some time, and he was like, "So you're not doing it because you want to show aggression?" She said, "No, Baba. Look at all the videos that I sent you. Look at all the, I just want to look nice. And plus, I wear a hijab, Baba. Who's going to know that I've dyed hair?" And he was like, "No, I don't think your grandma is going to approve of it." And she says, "I'll ask grandma. I'll ask grandma. I'll show the same pictures to her, and I'll ask her if it's okay with her. Will if she says it's okay, will you be okay?" And he said, "Yeah, yeah, I will be okay then." She said, "Okay." And she went to her grandma and she said, "Amiji, I want to do this." Grandma meaning her dad's mom, Dadi. And Amiji is a fashionable woman. She was like, "Of course, this is lovely. Go ahead, do it." And she said, "Grandma has no issues. This is fine. Can I do this?" And then he allowed her. And then that's how she dyed her hair red. But this is a real life example. We all have such real life examples, right? So now for point number three, we value and accept what you think. In it, you have three steps: repeat what is said without judging the content of the words, listen for the feelings behind the words, reflect back what you hear the child saying and feeling, right? The nine pitfalls that you should avoid. And I'm just going to go very quickly through them. The nine pitfalls that you should avoid while connecting to your child, while listening to the messages, so that it does not backfire is: number one, poor attitude. What is it? What is it? Rolling your eyes, face expressions. Number two is negative assumptions about your child. Oh, you'll do this, you'll do that, blah 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 blah, and you start saying that before listening to the child, right? Before connecting with them, before listening to the feelings behind the words. Number three, no reinforcing body language. Body language is important, and how you look at them, how you make them feel, how your demeanor is, your smile, your gentle, soft eyes. If you touch them, if you hug them, if you allow to hold them. I mean, usually teens don't want to hold your hands. You hold their hands, but competing with distractions. You're looking on the phone. You're switching the TV channel. You're asking them in the middle of the in the conversation. You're asking, "Oh, did I close the stove? Did I put I don't know where I put my keys." You're not going anywhere, but you just startly, your mind is wandering and you say those things out. So the child is like lost. That was number four. Number five is never asking for feedback on what you're saying. Exactly. Like, I, for example, I had an opinion and I said, you know what, my reservation is this, and this, and then just stopping and then saying more stuff, but actually not saying, I told you my reservations, what do you think about it? I mean, what does it sound like for you? What is your opinion about it? That, because that shows vulnerability, and that also shows them that you are human, you're not just a command machine. And if your relationship is not really badly damaged, children, I've seen 90% of the time they want to connect with their parents. No matter how bad the relationship is, they will respond nicely. Maybe blandly, maybe not like jolly, but they will respond, right? Kitchen sinking. What is kitchen sinking? This occurs in arguments when you feel backed into a corner and then bring up unrelated issues from the past to protect yourself or intensify with the disagreement. Stay on the task until an issue is fully discuss. Do not bring how they lost their lunchbox, or how they're so forgetful about things, or how the 50 times when you ask them to clean the car, they did not and they forgot. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's not about those times. I know, as a parent, I know for a fact that my judgment, my interpretation, my fear, my disappointment with my child is about what's happened in the past. But I have to understand that as a human being, I am teaching and modeling them that you have to move forward in life, and what's happened in the past, if you've not discussed it then and there, this time when they're wanting something from you, this is not the time to discuss it. This is not the time to discuss it. Really, don't do that, because then we basically are raising human beings who will not be able to have conflict resolution, um, um, because they just are clinging on to the past issues, and they were never able to discuss those then and there, or in some time space where both the parties were not charged up, and resolve the issue in a better environment, and then just hold on to it and throw it at the other person when they need something from you. That's manipulation. That's not good. Number seven is mind reading, right? Get curious about their actual thoughts and feelings, and don't say mujhe. I know you are you I know what you're thinking. I know. I can read from the back of your head. Don't, even if you know, and I know parents know. I'm not saying that they don't know. I'm a parent of three kids. I know majority of the times I do, but majority of the times I don't also. So sparring. What is sparring? Using put down sarcasm or discounting your child's ideas erodes meaningful dialogues and creates distance in your relationship. And number nine is lack of persistence. Persistence in what? Often with the child, communication requires your repeated efforts. And don't give up. Remember, kids do not think like adults, and you may need to keep trying. Right? You may need to keep trying. And they gave an example. They said that the author of this book gave his example that when he was 16 years old, he wanted to have a sports car, and the area that they lived in, 10 out of 12 months, at least 9 or 8 months, it was always winter. and the sports car would not have done well on the icy roads. And so he goes to his father and he says, at the age of 16, he goes to his father and he says, I want to have a sports car. I'm really into sports cars. And the father says, well, that's good that you like it. And what do you like about sports car? And he says how it looks and how it sounds, and it's so cool. And he says, well, I'm glad that you have a passion for this. My only question is, like, our roads are so bad and they're icy and the chances of accidents increase. So I am not going to fund for your car, but if you really feel strongly about it, I'm not going to stop you either. However, just consider the insurance rate going up every time you are into an accident, or every time the car just skids off the road, etc., etc. It's not that the government is going to change the conditions of the weather or something like that. So it's a really high risk purchase, and it's high risk for your safety as well. Apart from that, I mean, have you considered those things? And he said, yeah, I've considered those things, but he really hadn't. He was 16 years old. What happens is that after some thought, he does not buy that car. At 16, he does not buy that car. He understands that really it's not worth it, because I have to work overtime, because my dad said he's not going to help me fund it, he's not going to help me purchase it, I have to do it on my own. That means I have to do extra job, extra amount of work, and then cover my insurance itself. It's just too much. I can't do it. And he lets go of the idea. Was he mad at his parent? No, he wasn't. He wasn't mad at his parent, because at the end of the day, that was his decision that he made. His father gave him his yani thought process, and he says, good for you. He says, good for you. It's a good thing. I'm happy that you are excited and thinking of something, but really for me in the long term it's not going to work out. But whatever decision you make, I'm fine with it, right? So what is message number 4? You are capable. We believe in you. We believe in you. And this, the other author, Dr. Amen, said that once I went with my son to a penguin show, and I saw that the penguin caretaker would give penguin an instruction and tell him to go get something, and the penguin would quickly go and get it. And he said, I was with my boy, right? And I said, surely my boy is more intelligent than the penguin. And every time I ask my boy to do something for me, he wants to have a 20-minute argument with me about it. And at the end of the argument, he says, I'm not going to do it. And then I end up frustrated and he ends up frustrated. What is wrong? And so he goes to the penguin trainer with his son and he asks him, how do you train the penguin to listen to you in the first time? And this was funny. And so, and he says that the trainer looked at the father and son, and then he said, unlike parents, whenever Freddie does anything like what I want him to do, I notice him, I give him a hug, and I give him a fish. And so the light, Dr. Amen says, the light bulb went switched on in my head, because every time my son did something that was good, I would not notice it. I would not praise it. I would not say that I've noticed this and I'm proud of you, or I've noticed this. And so every time he didn't do what I wanted him to do, I would make a whole issue about it. And that was backfiring, because at the end of the day, every child needs attention from their father or mother. And that 20-minute of argument or discussion of why he should do what I'm asking him to do was actually giving him the attention that he needed. And at the end of the day, he would just like, yeah, so I got the attention. I'm still not doing what you want me to do. He changed his attitude. He changed his attitude, right? And then both the authors say that sometimes the praise firebacks. They say that some parents say that whenever they try to praise their child, it's like water off a duck's back. It doesn't just soak in. Their child has so low self-esteem, and no matter how often they provide or positive reinforcement, it falls flat. Sadly, some kids have preconceived notions about themselves and they are reluctant to let go of them even if they are negative. Well meaning compliments can unintentionally stir up self doubts. In these cases, it's best to think that the word love as a verb and an action. Taking action to help kids prove to themselves that they are capable and valuable can be far more powerful than the verbal praise, right? And so for that situation, there are 4 steps. Number 1, give your child a task that they can handle. Step 2 is hope that they make a mistake or misbehave. You need to know that they will show resistance. That is the point. That is the point. Point number three is provide sincere empathy and allow them to live with the consequences of their mistakes or misbehavior. And step number four is give them the task again. It's not like, oh, I asked you to do this, you did not do this, I cannot trust you anymore, blah, 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 blah. No, give them again, right? So basically, effective parenting strategy to use self competence builders and not stealers. What are those self competence builders? Allowing the kids to make decisions even if they make mistakes. The stealer would be recusing the kid from mistakes, right? The self competence builder would be sincere empathy. The stealer would be sarcasm. Oh, you cannot even do that. What's the point? Number three, and while I was saying this, it just clicked to my head. I do the sarcasm thing. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I should be more aware when I'm doing it. I should be more aware when I'm doing it. It's not funny. Okay, this was my aha bulb moment. Okay, being specific about praise. Even though you struck out that time, you handled it really calmly, praising them about exactly what you're praising them about that specific time, about that specific moment, right? What would a stealer be? You struck out, but you need to do better. You need to do better. Don't just hold your tongue back from telling them that they need to do better, at least in that moment. The builder would be allowing kids to struggle. The stealer would be making everything easy for the kids. The builder would be having loving family relationships. Of course, the stealer would be having family relationships where everybody blames themselves or the problems on their family. The builder would be focusing most of your energy on strengths, and the stealer would be focusing most of your energy on weaknesses. What is finally the message number five? The message number five is you are worth protecting. I love this. You're worth protecting. You're precious to me. I love you. I'm here for you. I listen to you. I'm trying to understand you. I'm not perfect, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us each other and we'll make the best of it, right? So what do you do? How do you basically tell them, teach them, let them know that you are worth protecting? For example, they give this division. They say that effective parenting strategy understands the rules of rescue by Dr. Foster Klein. So Dr. Foster Klein gave this map, this blueprint. He said, it's okay to rescue when your child is at the risk of losing their life or limb, but it's not okay to rescue them when they are facing hardship from which they can learn and grow, right? It's okay to rescue them when your child isn't in the habit of needing rescue. It's like once in a while kind of a thing. It's not okay when they're constantly relying on you. It's okay to rescue your child when your child is grateful for the rescue, but it's not okay when they feel that entitled about it, when they're like, you should do it, you are my parent, you were supposed to do it. It is okay to rescue your child when your child is a confident kid, but it's not okay when your child lacks confidence and needs to see what they're capable of coping with adversity. Now, the helicopter parents who are so anxious of seeing their children fail, they cannot. They're always trying to rescue their children, and usually their children, they develop a sense of entitlement, right? So what were the action steps for today's 5 points? What were the action steps? We were wrapping up, and the action steps were spend at least 20 minutes with your child, trying to listen to them, understand them, like having conversation with them, doing the things that they like to do, not what you like to do. The next time your child is struggling with something, try being present and letting them do the talking. Number three is practice active listening with your child. Practice active listening with your child. Number four, choose two discussion starters that you can use with your kids. Anything about the sports, or anything about the things that they're playing, or anything about the things that they're reading, or anything about where they went, or about their friend, etc., etc. Anything that they are interested in, not what you are interested in. Think about how you can use that. Wouldn't work for me when your kid says something outrageous, like when, for example, when your child says, I want to go to my friend's house for a sleepover. For me, that is outrageous. Not going to happen. I'm not going to bring anybody's child into my house. I'm not going to let you go to somebody's house. But that is the rule that has been set early on in the very early years of their life. However, of course, they're children. Of course, they're going to push your boundaries. Of course, they're teens. Of course, they think they know better than you. Of course, they think that their friend and their friend's family is perfect and we're better than their own family. Of course, right? So, when they have that kind of sort of an outrageous claim, you need to know how to keep your boundary, but basically actively listen to them and understand that a no is a no. I'm sorry, a no is a no. The worst that can happen is a tantrum, brooding, some really snarky bad remarks. But it's okay. It's okay. Think of a task you can give your child to use the 4 steps of responsibility, which we've discussed already. Use self competence builders and understand the rules of rescue. Jazakallahu khair, everybody. Thank you so much. Inshallah ta'ala, next week on Thursday Thoughts, we will continue with this book, Raising Mentally Strong Kids, learning how to help them become mentally strong, emotionally aware, while we are learning how to communicate with them, understand them, show them more empathy. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all the families around the world. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relieve the ummah from the pain and the suffering that they're going through on a daily basis. Anybody who is suffering from mental health, emotional health issues, financial health issues, relationship health issues, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ease everything for them, show them the right path. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala al-wudud fill our hearts with His love and the love for Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala al-kareem bless us with ease and happiness and goodness and kindness, kindness of heart, kindness of words, kindness of actions towards our loved ones, specifically towards our close knit families. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring us together to do khair, not just for our homes, our families, our children, but for the ummah, for humanity overall. Ameen sub Ameen. Jazakallahu khair. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.